Shaman has been my favorite class to play in the beta so far, and I'm excited to see if Shaman can make a mark in the M+ metagame for Shadowlands. Hello friends, this is Growl. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the changes to Resto Shaman in the Shadowlands beta, as well as my experiences playing the class and some keys, and how it feels to play. I'm not really going to focus too much on tuning or how different things compare, since balance is going to be happening constantly until release. First, I want to look over what's new in the spellbook. Frost Shock is now baseline for Resto Shaman. It feels good to have a DPS filler button that you can press while moving, and it even has a bit of utility being able to slow mobs. I'm not sure on the tuning of explosive orbs, but it could turn Shaman into a very strong explosive killer. It costs no mana and does slightly over half the damage of a lightning bolt, so you can use it in high movement fights to add in a little more damage. Shaman also gets Lightning Shield, doing damage to attackers. It is a little unfortunate that you can only cast this on yourself. I think it would be cool as a Resto Shaman to be able to use this on the tank and have the choice of being able to give a shield to do damage or shield for healing, as in Lightning Shield versus Earth Shield. Flame Tongue Weapon is also added. It does virtually nothing, but it has no drawback, I guess. It's a bit of a flavor spell. It would be cool if you had weapon imbues that you could actually choose from that did stuff. Maybe one that adds spell damage or healing or max HP, but I guess it's not a bad thing that it's added. Primal Strike is also in, similar to Flame Tongue. Maybe I'm missing the use here, but I don't really see how this is going to be used in any sort of serious play. Now onto the Resto specific stuff where we actually see some cool changes. Earth Shield is now baseline, so now you have a nice boost to your single target healing, which was a bit of a struggle for Resto Shamans in M+, especially early in BFA. They've also added Water Shield, giving a small amount of mana regen and even more mana when you get hit by melee attacks. And alongside Water Shield is Mana Tide Totem, a 3-minute cooldown spell that gives you and party members a small amount of mana regen. It's a neat spell, giving Shaman some added raid utility, as well as being able to give your fellow healers mana. Mana Tide also synergizes well with one of the legendaries that we can look over later. Now, looking at the talent tree, most of it remains pretty unchanged. I would have liked to see a bit more variety in the talent tree for Shamans, because they have tons of really cool spells already that are a bit buried behind stronger, more all-purpose talents. The biggest example I can think of is APT. Ancestral Protection Totem has to be one of the funnest spells to use as a healer, and I would have loved to see maybe a weaker version become baseline for all Resto Shamans. It gives you some sort of divine intervention that you can use to save allies from literal death, but the problem is the only real use is in raids for specific moments where you're just assigned to use it anyway. It would be a really fun spell to have in Mythic Plus to just throw around, but it competes with Earthen Wall Totem and Ancestral Vigor, so you almost never really see it used. The only major talent change is Surge of Earth, which replaces Earth Shield since it's now baseline. Surge of Earth lets you consume charges of your Earth Shield to heal your party. I definitely think they missed the mark here a bit with this, and I would have loved to see instead a way to turn Earth Shield into a percentage damage reduction, as Shaman is one of the only healers without a strong external cooldown for tanks. Maybe something like you can activate your Earth Shield for a 25% DR for 10 seconds, but then after it runs out, you can't use Earth Shield again for 2 minutes or something similar. I do want to go over my Covenant abilities. I'm just trying out all the Covenants, so I'm not saying this is the best one for Resto Shamans. I'm just highlighting the one I'm trying out. For this guy, I chose Venthyr. Their main ability is called Door of Shadows, giving you a fairly long-range teleport. I think it's likely Venthyr or Night Fae will be necessary for high M+ to facilitate skips on dangerous mobs, especially if rogues aren't part of the metagame, which we're not sure yet, but actually they look pretty strong right now. The cast isn't normally instant, but it's something I can select from my tree. You can see the range is actually pretty big, and you use it to instantly teleport. With this specific setup, it has a 90-second cooldown, but normally it's about 60. The Shaman specific ability is called Chain Harvest. It's essentially a combination of Chain Heal and Chain Lightning. It sends a wave through allies and enemies, dealing damage and healing. It initially looked pretty cool, but in practice it seemed too similar to my other abilities, and honestly it didn't really feel too impactful to press. Keeping the anima theme, it'd be cool if they added an effect that maybe heavily increases the damage or healing when you, let's say, heal an ally below 20% or finish off an enemy with it. That way it'll still have the same sort of vibe of chain lightning, but it feels really good when you press it at the right time and then you get a huge boost to it. I've been hearing the Kyrian Vesper totem is really cool too, so maybe I'll try that next. The conduit tree for Venthyr seems a bit unfinished, but I do want to show a couple of the cool conduits that I've seen. One of them is Swirling Currents. It makes it so when you use Healing Stream Totem, your next couple heals get boosted. There's also Heavy Rainfall that after you use Healing Tide, it boosts your next 2 healing rains by a lot, sort of synergizing with like a really big strong burst of healing for raids. I can see this being used. All these potency conduits that I've seen for classes seem really, really cool, and I hope they add a lot more of this sort of things in the future. But my favorite part of Shaman so far is definitely the legendaries. There are several legendary effects in the game already, and they've been a blast to play with. The one I've been playing with the most is Chains of Devastation, which makes Chain Lightning instant cast if it follows a Chain Heal, and it makes Chain Heal instant cast if it follows a Chain Lightning. What's important here is that it works off of itself. So let's say you cast a Chain Heal, now your next Chain Lightning is instant. Now, after you do that, the next Chain Heal you cast is instant. And after that, the next Chain Lightning you cast is instant. I'm not sure if it's working as intended or if it's supposed to do that, but it really should. This has been the most fun I've had playing Shaman ever. In trash pulls where there's a bunch of mobs and tons of group damage, you're just jumping around, pumping out insane amounts of healing, weaving in Chain Lightning. It feels really, really good to play in Mythic Plus. Here are a few of the other legendary effects that are in the game for Shamans currently. This one adds an Earthquake effect to Earth Elemental. I don't think this one will be that good unless it's insanely strong, just because the Resto Shaman Earth Elemental isn't very strong, so it would die quickly. There's this one that increases the Bloodlust duration and haste. I could see this maybe being used if there's maybe a really tough part of a boss or a really tough boss fight in Mythic Plus that you need the extra Healer Lust effect to be able to get through it. This one boosts your Earth Shield and has your Healing Wave adding stacks of your Earth Shield. That way you don't have to put it up as much. This one looks really cool for raid as well. An using Mana Tide Totem, the cast time of Healing Wave and Chain Heal is reduced, and they're free for 10 seconds. So this is essentially like an innervate, but even better because it reduces your cast time for Shamans. So you can use this in raid. You can throw down your Mana Tide, and then you can just start ripping off really big chain heals, and while at the same time you're gaining back mana and not spending it. So I think this one could be really strong for raid as well, since you're not using the Chain Lightning stuff too much in raid. And this one is also kind of neat. Casting Riptide has a 5% chance to activate Ascendance for 6 seconds, sort of like a Vision of Perfection in BFA. I think it would be maybe a bit cooler if it was controllable. For example, instead of this, it said every 20 Riptides that you cast, it activates Ascendance. That way you could maybe plan it out and like, okay, now I'm at 19, now I'll wait and then save it for a moment that you need bigger healing. But I don't know if this will be used on the just pure 5% chance to proc it. So that mostly wraps up my impressions of Shaman so far in the beta. They're still lacking a few things from other healers, but ultimately I think it's awesome that they're doubling down on the cool thematic elements of Shaman, and I think it could actually see some play in M+ if these legendaries end up working out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be making lots more healing videos about the Shadowlands beta, as well as continuing the high-level Mythic Plus content for BFA. Happy keying!